Hey guys, my guest tonight, Karie Bible, is going to tell us about the history and who's buried at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. We'll be right back. Grab your popcorn and snacks, find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust, turn out the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Good evening, everybody. Happy Monday. How's everybody doing? Thought I heard you say good. I hope you said good. My name is Charlotte. I'm going to be your host for the next hour. I'm also the owner of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team based out of Sacramento. We are 45 strong up and down the state, which means if you think you might have a paranormal issue, we can help you out. It might take us a while to get to you because, like I said, California is this huge state. But we will get to you. In the case that we can't get to you right away, we do have... Thank you. Thank you. My producers reminded me. We do have mediums on staff who can phone you and talk to you about what may or not be going on, and do a remote read. And if it is something paranormal, they can, so in most cases, simmer down the energy before we get out there. But it never takes us more than 2 or 3 days to get out to you. All right. That being said, a lot of you are watching on Facebook tonight, and I appreciate that. So if you haven't done so already, and you like what you see and hear tonight, please feel free to follow. We're always open for followers. Also, be sure to comment in the chat room and show me some love. Leave a thumbs up, okay? Because what that does is that puts us up higher in the FYP, and that makes Facebook computers distribute us out to more people. Right, it's all about sharing the show. I appreciate it. And if there is somebody around you in your home or apartment, or your car wouldn't matter, but your home or apartment that you think might like the show, please have them, share it. I do run the California, I forgot about, I'm kind of confused today. What's going on with this? Anyway, welcome. If you're watching from YouTube, check it out. We've got over 1,000 videos at YouTube, all of this show. And I am a journalist, photojournalist, and so I like to change it up. I don't always like to have paranormal stuff on. Tonight's an example of that. I got a really good show planned tonight. It's going to be fun, and it's being a journalist, I get bored just on one topic, and talking about ghosties and all that. So I like to change it up. So my guest tonight, Karie Bible, is going to just do that for us, and we're going to have a blast. And we're going to even talk about Close Up the Cemetery Cat. Whoa, okay. All right. So if you guys are on YouTube, same thing. If you haven't subscribed yet and you like what you see tonight, please feel free to subscribe. Always looking for subscribers. We're on the air Sunday through Fridays, 6:30 p.m. Pacific. On Sundays, we do read from a paranormal-themed book. Right now, we're in the middle of Bram Stoker's Dracula. So anyway, got news, okay? I've been pushing the Patreon a little bit because, of YouTube not showing me any love. And we now have 4 paid members over at Patreon at the bronze level Boo Crew, and I want to thank them all. That would be Pam N, Timothy, and Michelle. So that was really cool. Thank you so much for signing up. The link for the Patreon is in the description of the show. It's also running along the ticker at the bottom. Really appreciate it. It's those funds are helping to keep us on the air and helping to keep us creating content. That's what we want to do. That's what it's all about. Okay, now directly into our show tonight. I'm so excited. I visited this cemetery long time ago with my father. My father was born in 1926. So a lot of the people that are buried in the cemetery, a lot of the movie stars that are buried there, and band people, music, whatever, a lot of those people were at their height of their fame and at the height of their movies when my father was a teenager and going into his 20s before he joined the Coast Guard. So it was like going through with the tour guide because my dad knew who all these people were. after I got home from going there, I started hitting up all those movies because, of course, my dad would watch them, and I thought, they're hokey, But I started hitting up all those movies, and I had a blast because I knew, who was who and all this. And I still will watch those movies. I still will watch 42nd Street, and one of my favorites is An American in Paris. I'm astounded at the effects that they used even back then. Because remember, back in those days, no CGI, none of this stuff. And the one that really astounds me is in American in Paris, when the French gentleman is doing his solo, and there's this stairwell, and as he steps up on the stairs, each time he steps down, a light pops on the stair. How did they do it back then in the 40s? Just like I know from college and taking theater classes and doing stagecraft, there were guys running around on the stage during the filming of all this dressed in black. Because why? Because black you can't see. And what they were doing, because they were moving these stairs around. So these guys, I could just see these guys in my mind's eye moving them, with handles, and one or two guys moving these things around. But it was fantastic to see how the effects were, just like with Singing in the Rain. Universal Studios will give you several versions of how, what the rainfall was. Sometimes they say water, sometimes they say it was milk, so the camera would pick it up. It's the magic of Hollywood, right? It's the magic of the golden time of Hollywood, and that's who you're going to run into, in the grave-wise at the cemetery. So I'm really excited to bring her on. Let me shut up and bring her on, and we're going to have fun. Here we go, Karie. Hello.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure. Are you there?
Yes. Are you there?
Yeah.
Tell me about you.
Oh gosh, that could take a while. I was born in Fort Worth, Texas, originally. My dad worked at Love Field in Dallas, and Mom worked in Fort Worth, so I kind of grew up right in between the two cities. And then my family moved to Savannah, Georgia, in what year was that? 1997. Meanwhile, as a little girl, I fell in love with classic Hollywood. My gateway drug was the Universal horror monsters of the 1930s. They're actually on my shirt right now.
There you go.
And I wasn't into Barbie. I was into Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff, as every little girl should be. Absolutely. So I never lost my interest in movies. And I went to film school. I went to what was at the time called College of Santa Fe. Got a degree in film, and I moved to Los Angeles in the year 2000. And God, there's so much to say, but yeah, I saw Hollywood Forever and just fell completely in love with it, as I hope everybody does who goes there, and realized they didn't have a tour guide. And I thought, maybe that could be me. So I met with a historian who mentors me. I met with the president of our cemetery, and I've been giving tours there several times a month since 2002. But I do multiple other things as well. I work for a box office reporting firm. Mm-hmm. I do lectures on film history at assisted living facilities. I write. I do like a zillion things. But yeah, so that's just kind of a little bit about me. But I love film history. And one of the things that kind of gets me out of bed every day is just being able to share that history with other people and hopefully keep these artists and their art alive.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. I mean, when you walk through there, it's just so impressive.
Yeah.
The names that are in there. And yeah, I was just told the other night about Judy Garland finally getting moved over there, where the family was able to get her moved, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, what happened was when she died in 1969, she was only 47, and she was on her fifth marriage at the time, and they'd only been married a month or two. I mean, barely. And that husband wound up making all of the decisions. And he interred Judy, or had her interred rather, at Ferncliff Cemetery in upstate New York. But one of the problems there is that there's no room for her kids. And they decided they wanted to be with their mom someday. So I had heard for like decades, this like at least 10 years, that we were going to get her, and then it didn't happen. And then it was going to happen, and then it didn't happen. And I was like playing in the snow of Big Bear one weekend, and my phone started blowing up. And this guy is like, "Hi, I work for American Airlines. I'm loading Judy Garland on a plane." And I dropped my phone, and I was like, "Oh, who are you? Why are you contacting me?" It was very weird. I contacted the cemetery, and I didn't hear anything. And then next thing I know, it comes out in the news. Yeah, we're getting Judy Garland. So that's kind of how I found out, which is
Mm-hmm.
odd. But and I was kind of on gag order for like the first 6 months. We had black cloth all over the area where she's at. I really
Mm-hmm.
wasn't supposed to be talking about it at all, which I didn't. And then June 10th of 2017, which would have been her 95th birthday, we had a
Mm-hmm.
private ceremony in that room. And then later that night, we showed The Wizard of Oz on the Fairbanks lawn. And after that, the floodgates opened, and I could talk all about Judy. So it's just so great to have her here. I think it's like a
Mm-hmm.
grand homecoming, really.
Right.
And it's just been really wonderful to see the reactions of people. I've had people on my cemetery tour walk into her room and just break down in tears. I've had
Mm-hmm.
people walk in there and just burst into song. So it has a very profound effect on people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I can imagine. I'll have to get back over there, soon to check that out because, since like I said, I was there in probably 2008, 2007,
I
something
was
like
there
that.
at
It's the
the
last time.
time.
It's been a while. It's been a while since I've been there. Um, Tell me about your little furry friend that
Sweetheart.
liked you,
Yeah,
loved you,
it's
fell in love with you,
funny.
literally.
I had a black Labrador, and my black Labrador passed away in September of
Mm-hmm.
2019. And I was having a very difficult time in my life. And then my dog died. And I was kind of like crying myself to sleep almost every single night. And I was doing the tour, and this black cat just starts following me out of nowhere. And we have a cat colony at the cemetery. We're trying to get as many of them adopted as is possible. They are spayed, neutered, vaccinated. We have an excellent caretaker who takes care of them. But again, having them in a home is much more ideal. So he started following me, and I thought, I am very allergic to cats. I've spent most of my life, if I pet them, I would break out in hives. My eyes
Mm-hmm.
would turn red and water. I would start sneezing. And one day, I looked at him and thought, God, he is so cute. I'm just going to have to pet him. If I break out, I break out. It just is what it is. And I petted him, and nothing happened. And I kept staring at my hands, going, this is weird. I'm not breaking out in hives. I'm not getting sick. And I called my mom, and my mom said sometimes things that you're allergic to when you're younger, all of a sudden, maybe your body decides you're not allergic anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
think Close Up has decided, I've chosen you and you are no longer allergic, and that's that. And we kind of became a team. He would follow me all over the cemetery. We did a shoot for this website that used to exist called Strange LA. We did
Mm-hmm.
cemetery tours. We were on the show Lost LA. And then Close Up was injured in a cat fight. And then right when he recovered, he got injured in another one. And several of us made the decision that this is going to keep happening, and it's time for him to find a permanent indoor home, and that's what needs to
Right.
happen now.
Right.
And my really good friend Angie, her husband is a veterinarian, so they took excellent care of him until I could move out of my old place, which had a very strict no animal policy, and I got this place I have now, and I could have Close Up. So the first night I got him was the night that our little segment and Lost LA premiered on PBS. So
Mm-hmm.
Close Up and I literally sat on my couch and watched ourselves on TV. So it was very surreal. But he's my baby, and I love him so much. He's brought a lot of joy and happiness into my life. And I try to post about him because I think he brings a lot of joy to a lot of other people
He
too.
does. He does. He does.
Yeah.
What about his name? How I didn't tell anybody how he got his name.
Well, the cat caretaker originally named him Growly because he would growl like a dog to prevent other cats from stealing his food. But
Mm-hmm.
I named him Close Up because every time he loves being a star, he loves the limelight, he loves attention. And 9 times out of 10, when I saw him at the cemetery, it was either on top of or right beside the grave of Cecil B. DeMille.
Mm-hmm.
And so one day I just blurted out, gosh, he's ready for his close up, Mr. DeMille. And I was like, Close Up. That's the name. Close
That's
Up.
it.
So I incorporated Growly as his middle name. So his full name is now Close Up Growly DeMille Bible, which is my last name. So.
Awesome. Awesome. I know with the feral cats I've taken care of, I think the most incredible feeling, and these cats did this to me, is when they rub against your legs. And I was shocked because here it's a wild cat, right? And I just stood. I didn't know what else to do. So I just stood in place and I thought, okay, what are you doing? And then it dawned on me what was going on, and I thought, that's really cool. That is
Well,
the coolest thing.
he's had a rough day today because I was in my car. I had to go to West LA this morning, and I hear that we had like a 4.7 earthquake, and I
Uh-huh.
live not too far from where the epicenter. And so I was kind of worried. I get home and stuff was kind of askew on top of my desk, and
Hmm.
Close Up was hiding underneath my bed, and he would not come out. So I told him I loved him. I gave him a salmon treat. I've been holding him all afternoon and petting him, so he's doing really well now. So.
Fantastic. Now let's shift back over to the cemetery. Let's talk about some of this stuff because there's not only are there movie stars buried there, but there's also others buried there as well that aren't movie stars.
Oh, I mean, 99% of the people there technically are not movie stars. Sometimes on the tour, people assume that you have to be there, but I say no. I
Hmm.
mean, 99% of them are not. It's just that's what makes tour for obvious reasons. But
Hmm.
anybody can be there, and that's something that some people don't really know.
Which one is your favorite grave?
Oh gosh, that's always hard to say. I'd have to really say Rudolph Valentino. I love him so much and have for a long, long time. So, but
Hmm.
I love all of them, and I love all of them for different reasons, and a lot of these people were artists and trailblazers and innovators, and they were on the ground floor of an art form. And
Hmm.
so, like, even like the cinematographers or the editors, whenever I see their movies and I see their screen credit, I'm like, oh, I'm so proud of them. Like, I just feel this like kind of connection to them, even though obviously I didn't get to meet them. So,
Hmm. 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 You are one of the ladies in black, right? Or you were?
yeah, I'm a lady in black. I say a lady in black because
Hmm.
sometimes the tradition started like, gosh, a long, long, long time ago, starting in probably the 20s or 30s. But
Hmm.
women would come and leave flowers or red roses on Valentino's grave. The first lady in black was named Deidre Flemay. And she later went on a talk show in the 1950s and talked about how she got started as the lady in black. And then there have been many others throughout the years. I started doing it in 2002. And one of the things people ask me is, oh, are you going to get in a cat fight if another woman does this? And I always say no, because I feel like we live in a culture that pits women against each other. And I
Hmm.
hate that. And I reject that. So if another woman wants to look glamorous and wear black vintage and celebrate Valentino or whatever, I say, wonderful, the more the merrier. So my
Hmm.
friend Susie and Joanna and lots of other ladies I know show up and do it, and God bless. I think that's awesome. So I think there is plenty of love to go around. So every August 23rd at 12 noon, we have a really big memorial service at the cemetery to honor Valentino. It's I think the longest running continuous event in Hollywood history. And it's free and open to the public.
That's awesome. That
Yeah.
cemetery does a lot of things, just like you were talking about the movies. I mean, that's pretty cool.
We really do. I think that in a way, it helps destigmatize the whole concept of being in a cemetery. Do you know?
Hmm.
Because when I first
Hmm.
started my tour, I mean, I'd run into people who, if I told them about it, they'd be like, are you out of your mind? They'd think I was crazy. But now I don't get that very often from people
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
when you have movies and concerts and Dia de los Muertos and yoga class and tours and all these things, I think it kind of normalizes being in that environment. And see, I grew up down the street from a cemetery. My brother and I rode
Hmm.
our bikes in it and played. And I was in it or by it every single day for the first 21 years of my life. So to me, being around one is quite normal. But
Hmm.
I like that these events kind of make that all more normalized.
And then back in the old days, if I'm not mistaken, people used to picnic. People used to picnic in
Yeah.
cemeteries, families.
It's just interesting to see people's reactions. And I try to be very understanding of them. But yeah, some people used to do that. And there's some people to this day that still don't like the idea of being in one. They feel like it's bad
Hmm.
luck. Feel uncomfortable. Last fall, I had a private night tour, and this one lady booked it. And she walks out, she gets out of the car, the lift, I guess, looks around, looks at me, and goes, oh no, not doing this. And I was like, why not? Oh, no, 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 no. I'm leaving. Goodbye. And she just jumped in the car, and the Lyft driver just sped out of there like a bat out of hell. It was really odd. I was kind of thinking, you kind of knew what this was, right? But I thought, well, if this isn't in her comfort zone, I have to respect that and just move along. So.
Well, in a way, you could see it could be kind of intimidating at night there, because I mean, some of those, some of those graves are, the stones and the things are just so big. I mean, look at the Fairbanks or the Mill. I mean, that's huge.
I find them regal and beautiful and majestic.
Well, I do too, but yeah, well, maybe not everybody would do that, Just like the pyramids there too, right? There's a pyramid in there.
I kind of joke that sometimes I feel like a female Jack Skellington, because when I moved into my current place, I had all these skulls and stuff out in my little garden, and the landlord comes down and he's like, you can't do that. I was like, what do you mean? It's like, you just can't have all these plastic skulls. And I was like, but why not? Like, it didn't occur to me that some people would like not be comfortable with that. Like, it just did not dawn on me whatsoever. But I complied. I negotiated to keep the mini skulls, but the big ones had to go. So.
Are there any particular graves that get more requests than others to be seen?
People love Johnny Ramone, Valentino, Judy Garland. Lately, I've had a lot of people really get sad at Helena Hutchins, obviously, because that story's been in the news and it's so tragic. Yeah, but I do my very best to honor these people, to celebrate them, and hopefully help their artistry and art to get seen and live on.
Can you give people a little background on DeMille for the people that don't know?
DeMille? Well, he came to Hollywood, and very early on, he directed the first feature-length Western ever made in Hollywood, called The Squaw Man in 1913. And the building he made that in is still with us today. It's a gray barn across the street from the Hollywood Bowl. It's called the Hollywood Heritage Museum. They've like recreated his office. It's really cool. Highly recommend visiting. And then he wound up directing the silent version of the Ten Commandments, the talking and technicolor version of the Ten Commandments. He directed tons of movies throughout his career. And he also co-founded Paramount Pictures. But of course, many people know him for his appearance in Sunset Boulevard, where Gloria Swanson has that famous line, "I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille."
I just think it's so cool. I mean, like I said, for the people that haven't been there, it is just so cool just to see the names on the sides of these things, like Douglas Fairbanks Jr. and Sr. It's just fun to remember these people. It's a good way to remember them.
Anytime I am lucky enough to travel, I always try to make a cemetery part of my travels. That's definitely always a priority for me.
We have one here in Sacramento. They call it the Old City Cemetery. A lot of historical figures from California. The Sutter family's buried there. Kodak. I mean, there's names that they'll just jump off at you. But there's all kinds of different people buried here, and it's really cool to go through. It's really cool to go to the little archive office and look this stuff up too, to see who's there. In reality, that's why I think I just fell in love with Hollywood forever. I mean, I could walk. I'm like you. I could walk through there all day long and never get bored for a year. Just keep going back over there to look, because you're going to see something different every time.
Yeah, every time I go out of town, I come back and I'm like, whoa, that changed, and I didn't see that last time. And so they're kind of an ever-evolving, fluid thing.
Is it hard, because all those tombs and stuff are there? I mean, the family members of some of these old timer stars, are they really nice people, or are they real protective of those tombs?
I have not met tons of them. I've met Lorna Luft and Joey Luft, Judy Garland's children. I've met some of the families occasionally, but I am very respectful. There's a lot of people that probably would not be in my shoes, but I kind of feel like I have a responsibility, if that makes sense. Like when I talk about Judy, I say on my tour, a lot of people talk about her and they talk about the tragedy of her life. And I have opted to not do that because I feel like, first off, it is out there. There are books, documentaries, podcasts about her life, etc. And secondly, Judy hated the narrative that her life was a huge tragedy. And if you do not
Mhm.
believe me, it is on YouTube. So I feel like it does not serve them or anybody
Mhm.
to stand there and recount these things. But what I
Mhm.
say is that no matter what pain or heartache or struggle she was going through, when she got in front of that camera, when she got in front of that audience, she gave every single thing that she had to give. And she taught us along the way that if she could overcome her pain and her problems, even
Mhm.
temporarily in this life, that we could too.
Mhm.
And there are certain stars that are, of their time, and there's stars that are timeless. And Judy is
Mhm.
truly timeless. So I try
It,
to approach the tour with as much kindness and sensitivity toward these families and towards these legacies as possible.
mhm.
So yeah.
Absolutely. And it's amazing when you look at different stars too. They could be feeling really miserable, just horribly miserable. But the minute that spotlight hits, boom, they're on.
Yeah.
It's them, and I think it's incredible to be able to do that. And something on the side, guys, about Lorna left. What people don't realize is Lorna left because you always hear about Liza. You always hear about Liza, right? Because Liza's the one
Mhm.
that's done the films. Lorna has just as good at pipes as Liza does. They can
I
both
was
sing.
very lucky. I got to see her in concert down in, I think it was Orange County, like a year or two ago. And she was so good. And she's
Hmm.
very talented. And, I've read her book, Me and My Shadows, which is excellent. It's got
Hmm.
to be very difficult living in the shadow of an icon. I mean, I can't fathom what that would be like, but
Hmm.
that's got to kind of be a huge challenge in and of itself. But I think Lorna is a force of nature in her own right and a great talent in her own right.
She is. I was so surprised, watching YouTube videos of her, how good her voice is.
Yeah.
She sounds, in a lot of ways, she sounds a lot more like Judy than Liza does in a lot of
It
ways.
actually shouldn't be surprising because that's her mother. I mean, so it's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
like comes as no surprise that she also inherited, so much talent.
yeah. I'm just really impressed with Lorna. When you go around the cemetery, and I mean, the people, real quiet going around. Tell me about your tours. Tell me, where you go, where you take people.
Well, I do the main tour that I do is called Cemetery of the Stars. That's the one I do the most.
Hmm.
And we start out at the flower shop in front, and it's a 2.5 hour tour, sometimes close to 3 if people ask a lot of questions. So it's a
Hmm.
lot. It's a long time. But I think it flies by very quickly, and I keep it moving very quickly as well,
Hmm.
which I think is kind of important. But yeah, we start out at the flower shop. We talk about the Hollywood sign. We look at the peacock cages. We talk about the pointillism art on the graves. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I don't even know how many stars are on it. All I can say is a whole lot. But
Hmm.
yeah, we look at rock stars. We look at film stars. We look at crew people. We look at director. And there's just so much, to
Hmm.
talk about.
Hmm. Hmm. Burt Reynolds is there, isn't he?
Yes, yes, we have birds. It's funny because when we first got Bert, it was just a flat plaque on the ground.
Hmm.
And I would have people randomly looking up my website and calling me because they couldn't find him and they were frustrated. Like I remember
Hmm.
standing at Trader Joe's one day on my cell phone trying to tell someone how to find Bert. So when the
Hmm.
cemetery talked to Lonnie and they decided to do this statue with this sculpture, I was like, thank goodness people will
Hmm.
finally be able to easily find him and I won't have to constantly keep telling people where to find him. So I was really glad they did that. It's a great statue and a great tribute to him.
Hmm. Now we talked about the cats. There's other creatures that live out there as well.
Yes, we have turtles and peacocks or peafowl rather. We had a
Hmm.
big bumper crop be born this past spring. So I think we have about 8 new ones and about 3 of them are albino. I think we have a rabbit that lives there. We have, let's see, turtles, peafowl, swans, ducks, geese, a rabbit. It's kind of like an animal sanctuary where there are headstones. And Eddie on our staff, he's fantastic and he does a lot of work to care for the animals in addition to all the other
But I
things.
could see why animals would want to be there because I mean, no one's going to bother them. It's a nice,
Sometimes
quiet
people do,
place.
unfortunately. Sometimes people, I've seen a few people bothering them or harassing the which I always get very upset at that because it's not okay. But yeah, it's kind of like this, for the most part, it's like this huge oasis in the middle of crazy busy Hollywood. This just green. I had a guy take my tour one day and he was a bird watcher. And I think he was much more interested in the wildlife than my tour, but whatever. And at the end of the tour, he said, I counted 30 species of birds in this cemetery. So yeah, it's impressive.
That is impressive. Can you give us a little history on the cemetery? Because I know for a while it fell into disrepair, didn't it?
Yeah. In fact, the cemetery was founded in 1899, and there was a man by about 1951 who bought it, and his name was Jules Roth. He was an ex-convict, white-collar criminal, and he bought the cemetery, and over the course of many years, he kind of ran it into the ground. He embezzled a tremendous amount of money to the point where when he died in 1998, the cemetery was in bankruptcy and about supposed to being taken over by the state. But very fortunately, our current owner, Tyler Cassidy, came in with his team. And where a lot of people saw the cemetery as a decrepit, scandal-plagued mess, Tyler saw hope and he saw possibility. He purchased that entire cemetery for a very low price at the time, but he's pumped millions and millions into it ever since. And it's interesting because this friend of mine, he and his husband were at a flea market recently. And you know those old slide projectors where they make the clicky sound and they, the slides? They found for me an entire packet of slides of the cemetery photos in 1983. And you can see the vandalism, the bad shape it's in. There's even a big spray painted graffiti or anarchy symbol on Douglas Fairbanks's grave. Obviously, it looks terrible. And I didn't want to post any of this stuff because it does not look good for the cemetery. But I told our owners, I said, well, I think maybe if we have some sort of archive or collection of stuff, I think this would be great to add to it. So I had all of it digitally scanned and then just donated it to Tyler and the other executives at the cemetery so they could access it and have it. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, the stuff is beautiful. I mean, all those tombs, everything, all those monuments are gorgeous in there. Absolutely gorgeous.
And I like how diverse it is because, you know, I've been to some cemeteries where it's just flat rectangles on the ground as far as the eye can see. So I like being in a place where, there's a pyramid grave, there's a cowboy boot, there's a vinyl record, there's a rocket ship, there's a couch with dogs. So I kind of like the whimsy and the creativity that go into a lot of the graves that we have there.
I do too. In fact, like I said, the one we have here, there's a lot of, the different types of tombstones, and then I've seen them where, like up in out in Yolo County, where it's from a lumberjack, and so there's a log on top of the tombstone with with a saw in there. I mean, I just love looking at the unique tombstones. I used to go out and take black and white photos of them because it was so cool. To look at.
I always say every headstone has a story, so yeah, that's cool.
What do you think is one of the most poignant stories that's out there?
Oh gosh, I think they're all powerful and they're all touching, and God, it's so hard to say because I feel kind of connected to these people. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I want to say there's this Joanna and Heather have this group, these ladies I'm friendly with that are awesome. It's called Boneyard Besties on Instagram, and they adopt really rare, obscure silent stars and military veterans because they're both military veterans, and they clean and garden and take care of their graves. And like Virginia Rapé, the woman who died after the Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle scandal, people used to leave garbage and trash on her grave. Well, they clean it, they decorate it, they leave photos of her. It looks beautiful. And her life mattered too, as much as anyone else's does. So I love the work that they do. And I think that's really quite beautiful. But it's hard to just pick a single one, I guess if I had to say, I love Renee Adoré. She's in one of my favorite movies of all time, which is called The Big Parade. And she got tuberculosis and died in about 35 years old in 1933. So even some of the people that weren't famous, like I know some of the stories because I look up the obits or whatever. I think, one thing that makes me think about a lot being in the cemetery, you think about death, you think about life, you think about what your life means.
Yes.
And I just feel enormous gratitude for every day that I'm here.
Hmm.
You know,
Absolutely.
that's kind
Well,
of my
especially
take.
with that one, because you have the people that were movie stars, and then you've got the people that were movie stars, and a lot of them were big, big movie stars like Valentino or Cecil B. DeMille with the stuff he put together. And when you get there, it occurs to you, and you think, "Geez, you know what? No matter what I do in my life, we're all headed in the same direction."
I actually picked out my own grave during lockdown and signed off on my cremation, and it's all
Oh,
come
did you?
together. Well, I did because, there's like this new disease when COVID first hit that we didn't know about. And
Hmm.
it was crazy. I mean, I don't know about you, but I never thought I'd live in a world where there's a global pandemic and we're shut in
I
our
know.
home.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And my whole family lives 3,000 miles away in Savannah, Georgia. And I thought, what if something happened to me? They don't know LA that well. They don't really like it. They don't know most of my friends. Like, they would be kind of screwed. And I don't want that. So I thought
Hmm.
I should kind of do something. So
Hmm.
I did. I spent like a day grave shopping, if you will. But, it's kind of a profound thing to do because you think, okay, no matter what I achieve with my life, where I go, what I do, this is where my earthly journey comes to an end, right here at this
Hmm.
spot. And that's like
Hmm.
a really profound thing to take in and to think about. So I didn't take that decision lightly. I spent quite a lot of time making that choice. And
Hmm.
it kind of feels in a weird way a little bit liberating to have done it, you know?
Hmm. Hmm.
And I've seen a lot of people in Los Angeles that I've known that have died, and there's no will, there's no plans, there's no arrangement, there's no nothing. And then sometimes you see families get in fights or things
Hmm.
done that that person wouldn't have liked, but when there's no plan. So
Hmm.
I think it's kind of a gift to your loved ones and survivors to have those plans in place. So because grieving is hard enough as it is, but when you're
Right.
grieving and you're in the middle of drama and conflict and et cetera, I think that just makes it worse.
Hmm. Hmm. I
So
know
I'm
when
the
I got my plot. Yeah, I know when I got my plot. I would drive people over there, and they'd be like, "Why are you doing this?" And I said, "Well, this is my other address. This is it.
well,
This is
I,
where
I
we're."
try to be very death positive. I've gone to 2 death salon conferences, and I try to, I mean, it's kind of the elephant in the room that none of us want to acknowledge, really,
Hmm.
but it's there.
Hmm.
So I think it's very good to have these conversations and bring it out in the open.
Absolutely. When you tell people, you kind of talked about this earlier. When people find out what you do,
Mhm.
it must be. Some people must take it pretty good. Some people must be like, "Oh my God, ew! How can you go down there?"
Yeah, I've gotten both for sure.
I can imagine. I can imagine. So when you take people on these tours, I mean, because some of those mausoleums have like 2 floors, right? So you're going upstairs, you're going downstairs.
I usually don't go in the 2-story mausoleum. The tour's already
Hmm.
2.5 hours plus,
Right.
so I
Right.
can't get to everything. So I just do the Cemetery of the Stars. We go in the Cathedral Mausoleum, but when I do
Hmm.
the night tour, we go in the Abbey of the Psalms, the Columbarium, the Beth Olam, and the Cathedral. But that's kind of different.
Hmm.
But
What
yeah.
I what I find unique too with this cemetery, and it's something I didn't know till I started to watch stuff online, is the sections where people aren't entombed into the wall. There's there's like a, I don't want to say drawer, but it's like there's a glass window, and the urns are in there.
Mhm. It's a niche. Yeah.
Yeah, the niche.
Mhm.
Tell us about those. I don't think people see
Well,
those all the time.
it's kind of interesting. When I first started at the cemetery, they asked me to come out and speak and do a tour for a group called the Female Undertakers of America. And when
Hmm.
I took them in the Cathedral Mausoleum and I showed them some of the niches, they were very surprised, even shocked. And I kind of go, "Why are you shocked? I'm kind of confused." And they said, "Well, you don't understand. A lot of America, you can't decorate a niche. You can't put your
Hmm.
baby shoes, your photos, your perfume bottle, whatever. You can't do that." And I
Hmm.
said, "Well, with all due respect, I'm really glad that we do. I think
Hmm.
that it tells a story. And I think that it's kind of like curating a mini museum exhibit for these families to tell about who their loved one was. And our
Mhm.
owner, Tyler, is very, very innovative. And this was a big thing that he was kind of at the forefront of making happen.
Mhm.
And just a few months back, I had a funeral director take the tour from Arizona. And I was telling her the story. And she said, you guys were trendsetters, because now this is a lot more common to decorate niches. And
Mhm.
Hollywood Forever was really like a forerunner in making that normalized. But if you
Mhm.
think about it, so much of death care and the death industry, if you will, is tied to religion, to tradition, to beliefs that go back to, I don't know, the beginning of time. So
Mhm.
making changes in that world has got to be pretty hard, because it's very deeply entrenched. But our owner, Tyler, our president, Tyler, he is also at the forefront of the green burial movement. And that's something he's
Mhm.
doing at a cemetery in Northern California. So he is definitely one of the major innovators and people really moving the needle in this world.
I wanted to ask you about the piano.
Oh, in the Beth Olam,
Yes.
yeah, it's not really in good shape, but
Right.
it's yeah.
But they actually had used that at one time, right, for services.
They might have. My friend Arthur Dark does this great YouTube channel called Hollywood Graveyard, which is fantastic
Mhm.
if you've never seen it. And he's also a musician and a film composer. And he wrote some music and used that piano as like some of the keys and notes in that room with that piano to
Hmm.
write some music. So
That
yeah.
is really cool. That
It's
is really
probably
cool.
hard to keep a piano though really in good shape when you've got the humidity, the air
Mhm.
circulation, the kind of environment that room, creates.
Mhm. Mhm. But can you imagine? I mean, I thought about that when I was there. Can you imagine how it sounds in there? The things actually playing, and you're sitting in there. I mean, it's like being in a big concert hall.
Yeah, a little echoey, but yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Now back to Rudolph Valentino's grave. Do women actually kiss that?
Oh, all the time. A while back, I was giving a tour a few years ago, I guess, and this is
Mhm.
a huge group. And I
Mhm.
see this young woman. She had to have been maybe early 20s. And as I'm talking about his death, I see tears just pour down her face. And she kind of shoves through the crowd and runs out of the building. And I'm standing there like, what did I say? What did I do? And I noticed she had a gentleman with her. I assumed he was maybe a boyfriend. I pulled him aside and I said, did I mess up in some way here? And he said,
Mhm.
oh no, not at all. She just loves Valentino and she gets very emotional when his name comes up. Don't worry about it, it'll be fine. But it was like amazing when you've been gone nearly 90 years, 100 years, and
Mhm.
young girls are like crying and running out of a building when your name comes up. I mean, it's amazing.
It
I mean,
is.
he's really got a truly eternal star power.
Now, do they ever wash those lipstick marks off, or do they just leave them?
Yeah, they do. They do. I know Joanna, the Boneyard Besties do as well. I actually don't like it when people do that because lipstick
Mhm.
has a lot of very strong color pigments in it and it stains marble. And,
Mhm.
as famously in Paris at Père Lachaise, they've had to put a big glass box over Oscar Wilde's grave because so many people kiss
Mhm.
it. And that lipstick really stains. So,
Mhm.
not a fan of people
Mhm.
doing that, to be honest. But
And then when I mentioned the show on Friday, somebody mentioned Vampira.
mhm.
What is her grave like?
Oh, I love Vampira. It's basically a kind of a diagonal, flat, sort of a flat-ish diagonal stone,
Mhm.
and it's got the image of Vampira. And 2 years ago was the 100th anniversary of her birthday. So even though I look nothing like her, I have dressed up as her for a few times. So
Mhm.
I hired a Hollywood friend of mine who does makeup for Hollywood shoots, and so I hired her to come over, and it took about 2 hours, but she head to toe made me look like hair, makeup, Vampira with the wig. And I had the gown. And we did a whole tribute to her. And it was so cool. And I got to meet her niece, Sandra Nemi. And she was
Mhm.
awesome and signed Vampira's book to me. And it was really a wonderful celebration. And there's not a day that goes by you don't see a goth girl laying on that grave making videos or taking photos or guys leave stuff on it. And she really
Mhm.
is a cult icon. And it's kind of amazing to see the magnitude of that until you see that
Mhm.
grave all the time, and there's always stuff on it. So she really has a tremendous fan base. But I was
Good
really
for
I
you.
was really honored to get to kind of do something to pay tribute to her.
That's awesome. And for you guys who don't know who Vampira was, Vampira came before Elvira, Mistress of the Dark.
First horror host on television.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
In fact, I'm sitting right here behind my little collection of Vampira things in my
There you
cabinet.
go. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
a little mini collection. Either I've gotten or people have given me or whatnot. But I love her, and
That is great.
yeah, and she's really amazing. And her niece, when she signed the biography to me, she wrote "Love and Hisses," and I was like, "Oh, that's so cool."
That's great. So what
Yeah,
do they do with the stuff that people leave on that grave? What happens to
I
it?
think eventually they have to throw it away,
Mhm.
but or people steal it, unfortunately. But
Mhm.
there's a lady that I know in I think it's Portland. She's a collage artist, and when I told her I was going to do the 100 tribute to Vampira, she said,
Mhm.
"I'm making this giant wooden coffin collage. Would you put it on a grave and take a picture and send it to me?" And I said, "Absolutely, of course." So I did. And the day we did that, it was very cold, it was windy, it was raining. And I texted her and I said, "Well, the ceremony's over. What'll I do with this thing?" She goes, "Well, just leave it." And I was like, either A, it's going to get stolen, or B, it's cold and rainy. It's going to get damaged
Mhm.
and ruined quickly. And it's obvious she
Mhm.
put a lot of hard work into this thing. And
Mhm.
Sandra Nemi's niece saw it, and I just grabbed it and said, "Would you like this?" And she was so excited. So I texted the artist and I said, "By the way, I hope you don't mind. I gave your artwork to the niece," and she is thrilled. And the
Mhm.
artist was so happy about it. So I think it kind of worked out really well, and everybody
Right. Right.
won in
Right.
that.
Do you find that people have a lot of respect for that cemetery?
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely.
Mhm. What do you like best about being there?
I always feel a sense of peace there. Usually,
Mhm.
it feels like my home. I mean, I've been there over 22 years, so it's like my apartment. It's like this is where I live. It's very special. I feel peace. I feel joy. I feel just a sense of responsibility again to kind of telling these stories and
Mhm.
helping these artists live on. So it's just a joy to do that.
I would think that they appreciate it.
I
You
hope
know.
so. I think they do. I think they do. I try not to bug them because they're very busy. I mean, I honestly don't think the general public knows what cemetery employees do because,
Mhm.
I had one girl take my tour a year ago and she looked around and I do a little spiel at the beginning of the tour saying this is a fully
Mhm.
working cemetery. We must be respectful. And this girl goes, she's like in her 20s. She goes, "What do you
Mhm.
mean?" I said, "Well, it's a fully working. Well, what does that mean?" And I go, we bury people, we cremate people, we embalm people. She's like, "No, no, you're kidding me." And I go, "I'm not. That is what we do." And she was just so freaked out. So, but I always say, I just give a tour. I'm a history nerd, but
Mhm.
the people that do all of that work, they are heroes, bar none. Because during lockdown, I mean, we had to double the size of the prep room. We had trucks with refrigeration. The employees were working 7 days a week around the clock. And yet,
Mhm.
again, you've got this disease where nobody
Mhm.
knows a lot about it, and you're trying to handle bodies, deal with families. We had
Mhm.
to have
Mhm.
these little outdoor tables where people could make arrangements for their loved one outdoors because we couldn't go in the
Mhm.
office. I mean, so the fact that they worked so hard and they've dealt with so much, and they have to deal with families that are in horrible grief in times of tragedy,
Mhm.
I just have the absolute highest respect for all of them and all of the work that they do. And I can't emphasize that enough.
Question: do they do cremations on site, or do they have them
I
done
believe
somewhere
so,
else?
yeah. I mean, I don't
Oh,
go in that area, but yeah.
right. 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 So I did a story for a newspaper a day with a mortuary, and so I actually got to witness a cremation and everything, and so I was just curious about that.
Yeah,
But they do a lot of work. Go ahead.
yeah, yeah, I had a few years ago, the weirdest thing happened. This is probably 6 years ago. This lady called me and she asked for a private tour, and I said, sure, let's discuss. And
Mm-hmm.
she said, well, it's my daughter's sweet 16. I need you to do a little something extra. And I'm thinking she's going to want me to bring out a cake or whatnot. And
Right.
she goes, I want my 16-year-old to see a dead body for her birthday.
Wow.
And I go, I'm sorry, can you run that by me one more time? And she did. And I said, ma'am, because she goes, well, my daughter wants to be a medical examiner when she grows up, and I really want to encourage her. And I said, well, first off, the fact that you want to encourage your daughter's pursuits, especially in that, I think that's amazing. But there is no moral, legal, or ethical way that they would allow you to do that. That is not at all possible. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. I
there's
remember going
privacy.
when I walked out of the mortuary to cover the story.
Mhm.
And they were doing a funeral that day in the chapel. And they looked at me and they said, does this bother you? And I looked at them and I smiled, and because I'm a ghost hunter on the side, right? So I looked at him and I smiled and I said, no, not really, because I get him 200 years after you do. And the guy busted up because, I mean, it's true, But I'm just saying is that some people have weird, feelings about that stuff. It it doesn't bother me, but like that one you were talking about, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
You never know
I
people.
applaud her for being death positive. I applaud her for supporting her daughter in what is oftentimes a male-dominated field. But like I said, I just don't. I think she meant well, but I just don't think she understood how not realistic of a request that was.
Right. And the people that do work at these cemeteries, you're right. They're very busy. I had a cousin that was a grave digger. That's what he did for a living. How busy? I mean, like now that COVID's not on, do you know how busy that cemetery is? Because like you say, it is a working cemetery.
Yeah, they're still busy. I mean, it's a very famous, very high-profile place. I just do tours, so I can't really speak to other details other than different things I observe. But
yeah,
I try to stay out of their hair and not bug them. So I just do my tour. Go back home. So, yeah.
So I can only imagine, like I see the one here, and I see some of the ones that are newer here, and the upkeep is incredible. I mean, to keep the lawns down and keep everything trimmed, and unfortunately, like you say, people leave things, so they got to clean all that up,
It's a
and
lot
then
of
deal
work.
with that.
I mean,
There's a lot to do. There's a lot to do
the
at cemeteries.
grounds, we're finishing a new mausoleum right now. It's going to be like the tallest one in America with 30,000 crypts. But keeping the grass, the grounds, the pump well with the whole pond. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of hard work on so many fronts that go into maintaining the beauty of that place.
And as a historian, because you like history, when you go in there or initially when you went in there and you're looking at all these graves, how long did it take you to put together a tour?
Oh God, it took a while because it is so big. And I needed to memorize where everything was, the lay of the land. So before I ever gave a tour to the public, I would go like every weekend and with a map and just make notes and figure out, okay, Janet Gaynor and Adrian are by the two big trees. So-and-so's by the tree. Hattie's by the pond. Like I'd figure out, and then I'd draw on the map and try to figure out the best route. And it's changed a lot in 22 years. There's no question. And I have to keep it fluid because if I'm giving a tour and there's a giant funeral in the mausoleum, for example, I got to redo the order because I can't go near that. I have to keep my distance, respectful. So I'm kind of always changing and editing and redoing in my head. But yeah, it took quite a while. And I had several different historians take it and give me notes before I ever did one for the public. So,
I can see that because people don't realize or have no idea how big that cemetery is because it's huge. You could spend all day in there and not see it all.
Oh, absolutely.
It's really huge. What do you say to people that want to take your tours?
I say, I would love to have you. Please sign up at cemeterytour.com. And I think you'll enjoy learning about Hollywood history and the history of the cemetery.
Absolutely, absolutely. What is your favorite route to take on tour?
Oh, gosh. I love the whole place. I mean, I love being everywhere and doing everything, so there's not not necessarily a favorite route. Just I
Mm-hmm.
just love to be there. And I started this night tour, which I only do occasionally. I can't do it if there's a concert, an outdoor concert, a movie, a rental, a shoot, which eliminates a lot of nights, obviously. So I do them just occasionally when I can squeeze one on the schedule. But it's fun being there at night with a tiny group
Mm-hmm.
because I got the idea during lockdown because I thought, well, they can't do these giant screenings or concerts. What
Mm-hmm.
if I did a tour with 5 people, maybe
Mm-hmm.
10 or 15 tops? What would that be like? So when I do those, I keep the groups very small on purpose, and it's so still and it's so quiet and it's
Mm-hmm.
so magical, and the people that have taken it have really, really loved it. So I love being in there at night with a tiny group because I love the
Mm-hmm.
stillness of that
Mm-hmm.
experience.
Mm-hmm. That, that sounds great. Sounds wonderful. How can people find you again?
My website is cemeterytour.com, and on Instagram I'm Cemetery Tour Guide.
Okay. And close up the cemetery cat.
Yes, my
Let's not
baby.
forget. Let's not
Close up.
forget close up.
That's right.
That's awesome. I
He's
fell
all
in love with that cat.
asleep. So, huh?
Yeah. I fell in love with that cat. I found him by accident. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. I gotta watch that. I understand there's one in Paris. There's
Yeah.
these cats all over these cemeteries.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was in Père Lachaise. I went to Paris just this past November on a trip, and there is a very heavy set cat named Gribou. And Gribou lives in Père Lachaise, and he sleeps right at the front gate and the front like tomb in the cemetery. So the minute you walk in, you just see this outrageously chubby cat that he is so big because I think people bring gourmet French food to this cat. So he knows what he's doing.
Yeah. He knows.
But
He
yeah,
knows.
they are around the world. There's tons of cemetery cats around the world. If you go on Instagram, you can kind of go down that rabbit hole.
It's good for the cemetery though because it keeps the rodent population down, and it helps. Just like Disneyland. Disneyland's got their cats.
And I think it just provides sometimes comfort to people too.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, people love animals. I love animals. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they're very magical.
Thank you, Karie, for coming on. I so appreciate it. I had so much fun. I wanted to pick your brain about this stuff. I'm going to make it a point the next time I go to LA, I'm going to get a hold of you and we're going to hit up that cemetery
I would
because
love that. Please
I love
do.
it. I just love it. And I could wander around there all day and just look at this stuff, just like the one here. I drive around in there all the time, and I'm looking at the tombs and the different names and everything. Like Watt Avenue. The guy that I forget what the hell he invented. I'm here, but but his grave is in there. The Crocker Art Museum that we have here in town, with all the beautiful art. Their family's buried over here, so I just love to go through there and look at stuff. And the one you do your tours at, oh my God, yeah, it is just awesome, absolutely awesome. But thank you so much. Is there anything you'd like to add to any of this?
I think I'm good, but thank
Okay.
you for having me.
Well, thank you so much. We might have to get you back on here again to talk about stuff.
Thank
It's pretty
you.
cool. Pretty cool.
Thank you
All
so
right, you
much.
have a great rest of your evening.
You too.
Bye bye. Okay, yeah. I mean, I just love that cemetery, and I'm just so excited that she came on. Tomorrow night, I'm not going to be here. I have a personal thing to take care of, so I will be doing a best of episode tomorrow night. So just be aware of that. It's going to be a good one. I'm going to go through and pick it out tonight, but to just be aware of that. However, Wednesday night, I will have to pre-record the show. It's going to be a 9 o'clock pre-record, so I'll have it up and ready for you guys at 6:30. And that one will, like I said, pre-recorded, but it's a brand new show. So we're going to be talking about what are we talking about Wednesday? Oh, we're talking about dreams and how they can affect your health, or how they can teach you about upcoming health problems. So yeah, so that'll be on Wednesday. So but I will be on chat Wednesday night with you guys. Okay. Anyway, thank you guys very much. If you love the show, share it with 5 people. If you hated the show, share it with 5 of your enemies. We're equal opportunity here at California Haunts Radio. Just trying to get the word out about our little old show. All right. I will see you guys tomorrow. Well, no, I'll see you guys Wednesday on the chat. I'll definitely be on the chat. Have a great evening, everyone.